Well, good morning. Anybody ever had a sense of inadequacy when someone who loves them a whole lot introduced them to a group? Thank you. Okay. Well, what an absolute delight to get to be here with all of you today and see your amazing faces and be here. It's been way too long since I have been here. And I don't mean been here as a speaker, I mean just been here. I've been sort of up to here with that thing called life and that thing called work and that thing called like completely losing your sense of balance and priorities and what really matters as the one thing keeps asking more and more and more of you, that thing called work. And so it was super interesting to me when Reverend Brian texted me and said that for February he was looking for some speakers and would I be available? And my very first thought was, I can't do that. And not so much from a place of I'm too busy, which certainly that song was singing loud and clear in my head, and not from a place of I have other things I really need to be doing, although that was certainly going on loud and clear in my head, but more from a place of I am so out of practice. And I don't mean practice speaking. Like I give presentations and I facilitate workshops at my work all the time. You know, I'm sort of like, oh, in front of a room of people? Okay, what do you want me to talk about, right? That's something that comes naturally for me, and then also I've had the opportunity over my life to practice and build skills in speaking and facilitating. So that wasn't really so much the concern. I mean out of practice of practicing the principles. And that's a tough thing for a licensed practitioner to say out loud, in case anybody's wondering. I know it's a tough thing for a lot of us to say, licensed or unlicensed, but when you're a licensed practitioner and, you feel a certain sense of obligation that you're supposed to be doing a certain set of things. And when that practice falls aside, it can really bring forward a tremendous sense of inadequacy. And I want to really actually acknowledge Kimberly. I wasn't here last week for her talk, but I watched it. And was that just like awesome? Kimberly. Thank you for allowing me to trigger your sense of inadequacy. Yes. But I said to Kim earlier today, boy, I really could use that last week and the week before and the day before and the before and the before and the before of that thing that we do to ourselves when we judge ourselves to have fallen short. When we judge ourselves to not be living that thing that we believe. And as we're exploring today in the Principles of Science of Mind, which stated out every month in the Science of Mind magazine of what it is that we as Science of Mind practitioners, licensed or otherwise, profess to believe. And I always get such a kick out of this. Again, a thing a little tough for a licensed practitioner to admit, I don't read this very often. And I think it's the recovering Catholic in me, like those of you chuckling, I know, we believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen, right? Like those of you who grew up, it just falls out because every Sunday we repeated it as a community. But we are indeed exploring this month. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. And as we explore that, as Reverend Jenna was speaking about today too, knowing that there is an infinite power and presence, this thing that most of us choose to call God. I know Reverend Brian likes to joke, he has someone who calls it Bob. Is it one of your moms? Yeah. Whatever name you choose to give it, the ineffable, as the Pekofsky family has taught us, that which can't be effed up. The power and presence that is everywhere active, that is being itself as all that is seen and unseen. And I particularly enjoy reflecting on the unseen for two reasons. One, I love what astrophysics is discovering, this thing called dark matter, what we thought at one point was just emptiness. There's actually something there. We just don't see it. Or you think about just air and oxygen. I mean, I think about the thousands of years ago that people discovered oxygen. Like, how do you do that without whiz-bang scientific computer chips and technology? But they did, just through observation and understanding. So this thing, and then also for myself personally, I have the extraordinary gift in my life of being crazy, madly stupid in love with someone who chooses to be atheist. And what I love about being in a relationship with a radical atheist, he describes himself as, is that it's a constant reminder to me of why do I believe what I believe, right? And it's also a reminder to me that I can have my beliefs and not be right about them, right? So what I know to be true is my own personal experience. I have simply had too many experiences of the invisible to believe there's nothing there. And for my own journey, my own path with Science of Mind, some of you have heard me tell this story before. I went through quite a personal journey of transformation and looking for what did I believe to be true about this thing called God, and came to some realizations of my own, and then came to Science of Mind and was like, wow, wait, there's a whole like organized religion around the stuff I already decided was true? Like, I thought I had made it up. I was calling it Wendyism. So you come into that awareness that there is indeed this infinite life source, or as Ernest Holmes would describe it, there is a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. And then you get into the practice of building the skills, building the understanding to be consciously aware of that. I am an individualized expression of infinite life. I, within me, right here, right now, have the allness of God. I am not all that God is, but I have the allness of God right here, right now. So that's a super big idea. And building the practice of the conscious awareness of that, so it stops being a big idea and becomes an internal awareness and vibration, and that space that you really start to see when I turn to it, it turns to me. No matter how effed my world was. But that doesn't come by accident, right? That comes through building that conscious awareness and building that practice. So we have incredible tools with Science of Mind to build that understanding. What are some of the things that you all have found that are your building blocks? What do you do to build that awareness? Yes, interactivity. Meditation. Meditation. As Bob Simon so eloquently and beautifully reminds us, right? Meditation is the medication to heal the illusion of the separation. Because we can never be separated from that which is the truth of who we are. We just happen to have this thing called the prefrontal cortex in our brains that thinks we can and tells us we can. And in fact, Ernest Holmes explores this whole concept of what is it to be individualized. It is actually a process of self-definition and distinction that in many ways you could say is a process of experiencing yourself as separate from everybody else, when really it is a unique expression of that thing which is also everybody else. So we live in a world that tells us there's duality, there's bad, there's good, there's dark, there's life. We live in a world that seems to have a constant need to deconstruct everything awesome and wonderful and amazing about ourselves, right? That constantly bombards us with everything that is not the truth of who we are, and tells us that's the most important thing. Just, watch what Reverend Michael Beckwith likes to call the prayer request show, the news. Right? And That, boy, I tell you, that's a quick one, right? That's one of what I think of as the ejectors and deflectors. Right? If meditation is a building block that builds my conscious awareness of the truth of who I am, that builds my conscious awareness that I am unblockable, unstoppable, and inseparable from infinite life, that I am one with all who are, that I am an individualized expression of God. There are the ejectors and deflectors that bounce me right out of that awareness. Right? The news is one of those things for me. Right? So what's another building block? What's another building block that we use? Prayer. And I will say, even through the darkest hours, prayer tends to be where I can get most quickly. Anybody else feel that way at all? Right. So as you practice and as you build that mechanism, there is a way in which there's only one power, one present, one infinite allness of life. It is everywhere present. It is the truth of who I am. It is who I am right here, right now, and all the time, and I am right here, right now with it. Like, that goes on for me in meetings at work. When the other part of my brain is screaming, you have got to be kidding me. You want us to do what? By when? That's insane. There is only one power, one presence, one infinite allness of life. This is the truth of who I am. This is the truth of everybody here. And if you've ever seen the movie Miracle on 34th Street, the original with little Natalie Wood, yeah, it's one of my favorite scenes. I use it in a lot of my talks, but that thing where she's in the car going, I believe, it's silly, but I believe. Sometimes that is the vibration of my prayer, I confess. And yet we can still go there, and it is absolutely that place that immediately turns to us to meet us in that knowingness, if we have built the practice for that. Other building blocks. What are the other building blocks? Reaching out, caring, sharing. Those also fall into the bucket that I think of as sacred service. Those times where we come together, like here, like now, in sacred service, to support one another, to reach out, to be reached out to, and to be in the place where we have full permission to live the truth of who we are. You've all heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Where an experience is so severe and so violent, so traumatic, that even when it's no longer happening, something can occur which makes it feel like it is happening right here, right now, and it is real. Well, some social science research is finding the same is true for intensely loving experiences. So my friend Rich Dutra St. John and I branded, we decided we wanted to have a condition we called post-ecstatic joy syndrome. Sorry if I'm smiling for no apparent reason. I'm just suffering from PEJS. And so building those opportunities to have that experience, to create that love. I had a really fascinating experience recently with my work where, how many of you work in a corporate setting? Or have at some point? Right, yeah. Talk about a soul-sucking environment. I mean, is it just me? Right? Most companies, it seems like, oh, hi, we're looking for an employee, but doggone it, a human being showed up. Crap, what are we going to do with them? Right? And most of those environments, there are people who we come together for the vast majority of our waking hours, right? And work so hard on behalf of and with one another. And in that same dynamic, almost never say, I really appreciate you. I'm really grateful to get to work with you. And so I was recently doing a workshop with a client, and they're in the midst of a very significant culture change and a big leadership development effort. And really the core to that is their own team building skills and their own awareness of their interconnectedness. Dare I say, awareness of their oneness, which we don't typically talk about in a work environment. the separation of church and state, the separation of work and, and spirituality. And yet every person who comes in is a spiritual being. So we created as part of the workshop the opportunity for an appreciation exercise. And while I was teeing it up to them and describing to them they were going to go and pick a person and face them and just pay that person a compliment. And that person's response was to be, thank you. And then walk away and find somebody else. You could have cut the fear and terror with a knife, man. The room just went, you were like, what? So this was not a surprise to me. I have been in this situation before, so yes. And the good news is we talk about it in the spirit of change. I do work around what's called change management, and so I always get to bring up, isn't this great? I'm asking you to do something differently to build your resiliency for change. You're welcome, right? And they're like, ah! Right? So they get into the process, they get into the exercise, and I can't stop them. Right? There's hugs, there's tears, there's laughter. The energy in the room is through the roof. And I'm like, okay, people, time to wrap it up. They won't stop. Okay, people, we got to get going. They won't stop. And have any of you ever seen the movie series The Purge or heard of it? Yeah, it's this really epically, frighteningly violent thing with some very interesting social commentary hidden in the violence. But the essence of it is this. It's a dystopian future where one night a year, thank God. Ugh, a week, how horrible that would be. One night a year, any crime is legal, including murder. So yeah, let's just tap into our darkest selves and put it on screen. Anyway, so this is this thing, the purge, and the idea is that everybody just gets all their darkness out. And then they can be nice and happy all year long, and then they get all their darkness out once a year, right? And I tell you, I think we do that fairly consistently as a species as it is. You know, I don't really know that we need permission to bring the darkness. But I do think we need permission to bring the love. The movie I want to see, I'm calling it The Binge. One night a year, you get to be as loving as you possibly can, and nobody can say no. Right? One night a year, you get to show up to people and tell them how truly amazing you see them to be, and they're not allowed to say, not me, that's not true, because we don't give ourselves permission to be the truth of who we are. We spend this time building that awareness, building those skills. I am an individualized expression of infinite life. I am an expression of love. I am one with the allness of life, and there is nothing, no human thought, word, or action that can block the goodness of God from revealing itself as my life. And then we go out and we be that. We go out and we be that in the world, and a lot of times, at least for me in my own journey, it kind of looked like this. I'm just being it over here, where none of you can really see it, because then you can't give me crap about it, right? I'm just gonna be it to myself. It's super easy. I know you all have heard this joke before, but it's so easy to be Zen on top of the mountain. Come on down in the valley, where the work is happening and the life is being lived and the people are showing up just as their own beautiful selves. And then that consciousness can get zapped pretty quick. The ejectors and the deflectors start showing up, right? The news, the judgment. Judgment is one of the most, for me anyway, my most instant ejector from consciousness. Because, you know, there I am, right? I'm just living, if I did my meditation and I did my prayer and I've been involved in my sacred service and I'm being the love that's the truth of who I am. And hey, what are you doing in my space, man? Like, if this person shows up, you cut me off on the highway, the classic example. Or you see somebody being rude to other people or whatever it is. And the judgment that I get into, how could that person possibly do that, right? Which then immediately becomes, as Kim beautifully articulated last week, and how could I possibly be so awful to be thinking that way? So now we get into the infinite circle. I judge me, I judge you. I judge me, I judge you. I judge me, I judge you. I think that's really what Jesus was talking about when he was like, judge not lest ye be judged. He wasn't talking about other people are going to judge you. He's talking about when you start judging others, you're going to judge the crap out of yourself too, and it's just going to keep on cycling and cycling. And so another one of those things that ejects us from our awareness, right? We take the time to build it, to be it. What are some other things you find pops you out of your awareness? You've done your practice, but then something shows up in your world. You're like, gratitude brings you back to it. That's a great builder, absolutely. That practice of gratitude and coming in like, and this has been my secret one for dealing with judgment. Somebody will show up and behave in a way that I think, frankly, is just really stupid. And I'm judgmental. And, hi, my name is Wendy, and I'm judgmental. It is almost like an addiction, actually. It's frightening. And I think our human condition really continues to amplify it and reinforce it. Like it's a cool thing to do. Look at the so-called news. This one I won't call the real news. But all the opinion shows that are out there pretending to be news. What is that? Except let's just sit down and judge this other group of people. Okay. So in that space, though, my little secret trick is I can move to gratitude in the sense of I am so grateful that my brain doesn't work like that person's. It's a little questionable. It's true gratitude, but it opens the door, right? Sometimes I can't get from, I can't believe what an idiot you are, to, I see you as whole, perfect, and complete, right? Oh, I see you as an individualized expression of job who's driving me crazy. So I can't quite get there. But if I start with even the tiniest bit of gratitude, even gratitude that really is camouflaged judgment, it starts me on the path to sincere gratitude. And then I start to see in that person the things maybe I wasn't letting myself see before. And then I become truly, honestly grateful for them. How so many times teachers in our lives can show up as professors, as mentors, as teachers, and as you jerk. But still teachers, that we get to the place where we get to be grateful for all of it. We get to be grateful for all of it. So we work on building it, we work on being it, and this is like, again, creating the environment where you get to come and just be it. Like coming in these doors into a group of people who frankly just give you permission. I give you full permission to be loving. I give you full permission to be generous. I give you full permission to be caring, and I will be the same for you. That is community. That is the sacred community, the beloved community. That is oneness, that is every spiritual center out there living in this vibration. The trick then is we have to move to bring it. It's not enough just to build it. It's not enough just to be it, but it's up to us then to bring it into the world. And as I was exploring this idea of being the individualized expression of God, thank you, Brian, for inviting me to come and reconnect and explore. I got thinking about that aspect of we are the delivery system. You see, the infinite, the invisible, the ineffable, it's not dancing around in form of its own in the world. We are it dancing around in form in the world. So then, if that's true, then we are the inlet and the outlet for God. Like God can't taste ice cream except through us. There goes my diet. God can't experience love except through us. Feels a little bit of a stretch. Anybody who's seen those coming home videos of the dog greeting the service people? We are clearly not the only inlet and outlets of love on the planet. That's very clear. Yet there is something that is the expression and the receptive space. We are the receiving system and the broadcast, the delivery system for God. So when I pull back into my world and just say, I have too much work to do, to the point where literally my arms refuse to reach up to the computer keyboard anymore, I am blocking God from experiencing community as me. So each of us gets to always be it, build it, and bring it into the world. So many of you know this is probably going to be my last time speaking here at Oneness as a resident of Maryland. I am in the process of moving to San Antonio, Texas to be closer to my mom. She's getting a little older, and though she's fine, I'm not. Right? It's just too hard for me to be this far away. So I've married the most awesome dude in the world, except, and he said, I'll never live in Texas, but yes, if you want to go live in Texas, let's go. So we're moving, and so that's in process. So this talk, as hopefully by the end of March, as many of you have asked the timeline, that's our goal. So I wanted to also share with you as part of this talk, I've shared it before here, but it's just one of my absolute favorites from Dr. Howard Thurman for the Inward Journey. And to me, it really speaks to this thing of keeping in front of our thinking this understanding, this willingness to do the work, to build the connections, to resist the ejectors and deflectors, to know that we are indeed individualized expressions of God. It's called the moments of high resolve. And he says, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. But I had forgotten. At the time it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for all the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. So let us take this into prayer. Please join me in this affirmative prayer. How grateful I am for the opportunity to be right here and right now. To rest in the awareness of the infinite allness of life, that which is everywhere present, which is everywhere active, that is at this very moment being itself effortlessly and impeccably as all that there is, from the farthest stars to the very cells of our bodies and all the spaces in between. One life, one power, one presence. I know that it is the truth of who I am, for I am an individualized expression of God. And I know it is the truth of who each person within the sound of my voice is. Each person here in this room, each person live streaming, each person watching the recording, that they indeed are infinite expressions, individualized, of the infinite power and presence that we call God. And so as we know this together, we rest in the depth of the building blocks of love, the depths of the building blocks of shared awareness, the depths of knowingness, that every moment we turn to it, it turns to us, for indeed, it has never moved. That the power and presence that is the truth of who we are lives itself as our lives, and no matter what human belief, no matter what human baggage, no matter what resistance or barriers or ejectors or deflectors we might put in place ourselves, the truth of who we are shines through. For we are indeed love. We are indeed peace. We are indeed abundance. We are indeed the infinite givingness of God itself. And so I bless the life of each person within the sound of my voice. I know that right where they are, divine right action is revealing itself as their life and their entire bodies of affair. From the physical body to the mental body to the emotional body to the body of financial well-being to the body known as divine and perfect right relationship to the body known as divine and perfect right employment. I know that all needs are met. Right here, right now. For we have come together in agreement to become more and never less than the absolute truth of who we are. One life, one love, one unblockable, unstoppable power for good. How grateful I am to know this truth, to speak this word, to have the opportunity to consciously rest in this awareness and allow it to be itself as me in this moment and in every moment. And I release this word with a joyful and oh so grateful heart for the power of this word, the power of this teaching, the glory that is this community. And I know that it is indeed already done, for we have named it, we have claimed it, and now we simply allow it to be. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.